Evacuation of Bedouin civilians in Sweida, a fragile ceasefire. A tense ceasefire hangs by a thread in Syria as families flee bloodshed, but beneath the surface, deep-rooted sectarian wounds threaten to unravel everything. Hundreds of Bedouin civilians evacuated Syria's Druze-majority city of Sweida on Monday, July 21st, amid a fragile U.S.-backed truce designed to end days of brutal fighting that has exposed Syria's raw divisions after 14 years of conflict. Here's the critical context. This violence isn't just another clash. It's a devastating test for Syria's interim leader, Ahmed al-Sharaa, one that even triggered Israeli airstrikes last week and deepened the fractures in a nation already shattered by war. The ceasefire, which took hold on Sunday, allowed Syrian Interior Ministry security forces to deploy around Sweida's outskirts. Interior Minister Anas Khattab announced this pause would enable the release of hostages and detainees held by opposing sides. But here's where the human cost becomes horrifyingly real. Witnesses and state media confirmed the evacuation as families escaped the violence that erupted a week earlier. Now, let's unpack what sparked this. Fighting exploded when distrustful Druze fighters, part of a minority faith that some hardline Muslims consider heretical, clashed with Sunni Muslim Bedouin tribes. Damascus sent troops to stop the violence. But controversially, these forces were accused of committing widespread abuses against the Druze instead of protecting them. And here's the explosive accusation. President Sharaa denounced the violence as the work of outlaw groups and vowed to protect Druze rights, calling them essential to Syria's identity. But survivors tell a different, chilling story. Ali al-Hiraim, a 56-year-old Bedouin man, recounted how 6 extended family members were killed by Druze fighters in Shaba, a town just 15 kilometers north of Sweida, despite assurances of safety from Druze elders. He claims a faction sought to expel Sunni tribes from the area. Salem al-Mahdi, another displaced Bedouin, described finding 6 bodies in a single Shaba home, with mortars devastating the town. From the Druze perspective, activist Luna al-Basit reported by phone that state-aligned forces killed and humiliated people in the streets, in their homes, in the name of the state. But here's the critical caveat. Reuters couldn't independently verify these accounts, highlighting the fog of war. Visual evidence from local outlet Sweida 24 showed rows of body bags outside a hospital Sunday, a grim testament to the toll. Human rights groups clash on numbers too. The Syrian Network for Human Rights reports at least 558 dead since July 13th, while the Syrian Observatory claims over 1,000. Monday's evacuation saw ambulances, trucks, and buses transport hundreds of Bedouin women, children, and wounded to displacement camps. Security officer Shoaib Asfour outlined a phased plan. An initial 300 evacuees, followed by 550 more if calm holds. Then the release of Bedouin fighters held by Druze militias and the transfer of the dead. State media claimed 1,500 would leave Sweida city altogether, with security forces promising to help displaced residents return, though the UN states at least 93,000 people have fled. Now comes the controversial international angle. While the U.S. supports Damascus after Sharaa's May meeting with Donald Trump, it publicly disapproved of Israel's airstrikes. Israel justified bombing Syrian government targets and Damascus Defense Ministry as protection for Druze communities and to keep southern Syria demilitarized. U.S. envoy Tom Barak, visiting Beirut, issued a loaded statement. The Syrian government must be held accountable and given the responsibility that they're there to do. Meanwhile, humanitarian access remains tense. The UN reported Sunday that its medical convoys waited 2 days to enter Sweida, blocked until only the Syrian Arab Red Crescent gained entry. So here's where opinions collide. Is this truce a genuine step toward peace, or a fragile pause that ignores Syria's unhealed sectarian rifts? Can a government accused of violations effectively protect minorities? And when Israel acts unilaterally to defend groups like the Druze, does it destabilize further or force accountability? What do you think? Does external intervention help or hinder? Voice your take below. ***. Tensions rise in Syria. Bedouins withdraw from Sweida amid clashes. Imagine the chaos and devastation that can unfold when long-standing tensions between different communities erupt into violence. This is exactly what happened in Syria's Druze-majority city of Sweida, where armed Bedouin clans clashed with Druze militias, leading to a week of intense fighting and a U.S.-brokered ceasefire. But here's where it gets controversial. The situation is far from simple, with sectarian attacks, airstrikes, and political maneuvering all playing a role. Let's dive into the details. Syrian government security forces blocked Bedouin fighters from entering Sweida province, a move that came after a series of violent clashes. These clashes, which took place in various towns and villages, quickly escalated into a full-blown conflict in Sweida city, the provincial capital. The fighting resulted in hundreds of deaths and threatened to derail Syria's already fragile post-war transition. Adding to the complexity, Israel launched dozens of airstrikes in the Druze-majority Sweida province, targeting government forces who had aligned themselves with the Bedouins. The clashes also sparked a series of targeted sectarian attacks against the Druze community, followed by retaliatory attacks against the Bedouins. A series of tit-for-tat kidnappings initially ignited the violence, which then spread to Sweida city. Government forces were redeployed to halt renewed fighting that erupted on Thursday, but they later withdrew again. Interim President Ahmad al-Shara, who has been seen as more sympathetic to the Bedouins, tried to appeal to the Druze community while remaining critical of the militias. He later urged the Bedouins to leave the city, emphasizing that they cannot replace the role of the state in handling the country's affairs and restoring security. In a broadcasted address on Saturday, he said, "We thank the Bedouins for their heroic stances but demand they fully commit to the ceasefire and comply with the state's orders." Dozens of armed Bedouin fighters, along with other clans from around the country who came to support them, remained on the outskirts of the city. They were cordoned off by government security forces and military police. The Bedouins blamed the clashes on Druze factions loyal to spiritual leader Sheikh Hikmat al-Hydri, accusing them of harming Bedouin families. Khaled al-Muhammad, who came to the southern province alongside other tribesmen from the eastern Deir al-Zur province, told the Associated Press, "We will not leave until he turns himself in alongside those with him who tried to stir sedition. And only then will we go home." The Bedouins' withdrawal brought a cautious calm to the area, with humanitarian convoys on their way. The Syrian Red Crescent reported sending 32 trucks loaded with food, medicine, water, fuel, and other aid. The fighting had left the province with power cuts and shortages. Syria's state news agency Sana reported that the convoy entered Sweida on Sunday, but accused al-Hydri and his armed Druze supporters of turning back a government delegation that accompanied another convoy. The foreign ministry stated that the convoy included 2 ambulances loaded with aid provided by local and international organizations. Al-Hydri did not directly respond to the accusations, but said in a statement that he welcomes any assistance for Sweida and slammed what he claims were distorted campaigns against him. "We reaffirm that we have no dispute with anyone on any religious or ethnic basis," the statement read. "Shame and disgrace be upon all those who seek to sow discord and hatred in the minds of young people." The UN International Organization for Migration reported that 128,571 people were displaced during the clashes, including 43,000 on Saturday alone. Washington's special envoy to Syria, Tom Barak, said the clashes and atrocities overshadowed an initial cautious optimism about the country's post-war transition and the international community's lifting of sanctions. "All factions must immediately lay down their arms, cease hostilities, and abandon cycles of tribal vengeance," Barak said on X. "Syria stands at a critical juncture. Peace and dialogue must prevail, and prevail now." Among those killed in the week-long fighting were dozens of Druze civilians slain in a series of targeted attacks in the city at the hands of Bedouin fighters and government forces. Videos surfaced online of fighters destroying portraits of Druze religious officials and notables in homes and shaving the mustaches of elderly Druze, seen as an insult to culture and tradition. Druze militias in return attacked Bedouin-majority areas in the outskirts of the province, forcing families to flee to neighboring Dar province. More than half of the roughly 1 million Druze worldwide live in Syria. Most of the other Druze live in Lebanon and Israel, including in the Golan Heights, which Israel captured from Syria in the 1967 Mideast War and annexed in 1981. Syria's Druze largely celebrated the downfall of the Assad family that ended decades of tyrannical rule. While they had concerns about al-Shara's de facto Islamist rule, a large number wanted to approach matters diplomatically. Al-Hydri and his supporters, though, have taken a more confrontational approach with al-Shara, contrary to most other influential Druze figures. Critics also note al-Hydri's previous allegiance to Assad. However, the recent clashes and sectarian attacks on the minority community have made a growing number of Druze in the area more skeptical about Damascus' new leadership and more doubtful of peaceful coexistence. And this is the part most people miss. The underlying tensions and historical grievances are deeply rooted, and resolving them will require more than just a ceasefire. It will take sustained efforts from all parties involved to rebuild trust and foster a lasting peace. So what do you think? Is a lasting peace possible in Syria, or are these conflicts too deeply ingrained to be resolved? Share your thoughts in the comments below.